I'm talking today with Tom Friedman, New York Times columnist and author of That Used to Be Us, which he wrote with Michael Mandelbaum. We're talking about his book, An American Competitiveness.
Bill, the reason the book has a backward-looking title but a forward-looking theme, that used to be us, but the theme is forward-looking, is first of all to convey to people we didn't get here by accident. We actually had a formula for success. We did get here in a certain way. We've gotten a little away from that formula and we have to get back to it. But if you actually look at the things that made us great, education, infrastructure, immigration, the right rules, government-funded research, the arrows are pointing down in too many areas and at the national level. And so our view is we're in a kind of slow decline. How do you, if someone said to you, where are you on that continuum, Bill? Where would you locate yourself?
Well, I think it's very important to distinguish relative decline versus absolute decline. And so are we as far ahead of other countries as we were at the end of World War II or in the 1960s or the 1990s? And the answer is no. We are not as far ahead. And we didn't keep it a secret that you're supposed to have good universities, good infrastructure and stability. And so it's wonderful for humanity that many of our best practices are being exercised on a more global scale. China is kind of the exemplar of this, that they're building a higher education system and investing in science and using marketplace mechanisms. And so our relative position, the 5% of humanity who lives in this one particular nation, is it an unadulterated good for the other 95% to keep screwing up? And should we feel sad that they're literate, healthy, they're training scientists who will invent cancer medicines that will actually work in the United States? We are so used to being number one that it is a little bit of a comeuppance to not have this lead. And even the phrase, will America maintain its leadership? I want more definition of that, because that can mean a relative lead, which I think is unhealthy, or it can mean, are we taking what we're good at and continuing to improve, which we're not doing as well as we should.
What are you seeing of the impact of going from this now connected world to what is really hyper-connected?
Well, that's where you get this big paradox, is that the speed of innovation in the world today is faster than it's ever been, whether it's in medicine, energy, IT. Our deep understandings of these things are advancing on a global basis, and the internet has actually been a tool to supercharge a lot of the collaboration and big data type understandings that we gain. So it's interesting to contrast the rather fearful mood about the future that the United States finds itself in, and the fact that innovation is continuing to improve.
And from here too.
There's more innovation taking place in this country still than the whole rest of the world put together. And so it's a kind of a paradox that when you ask Americans, is your future going to be better, that about 60% said no, that they were fearful the next generation was going to be worse off. And that's amazing to me, because it is innovation that carries us forward, that will make diseases better. And innovations don't go backwards.
So here's the question that really has gnawed at me most, and I really want your answer on this, because it brings education and technology together. Because I think, as the world has gotten this hyper-connected, there is this kind of phenomena where average is over. That is that employers now have access to so much more cheap labor, cheap talent, cheap software, cheap robotics, cheap genius than ever before. And so the question I'm really asking is, what happens to the 30, 40-year-old worker who did work at the Ford plant, or did, think about Baltimore. So we live in Bethesda. 50 years ago, biggest employer in Baltimore was Bethlehem Steel. So you could actually drop out of high school, get a job in the union, get a job at Bethlehem Steel, work 30 years, retire with a pension, have a house, a yard, 2 dogs, kids, go to Orioles games on the weekend. You could lead a good middle class American lifestyle. So today, the biggest employer in Baltimore is Johns Hopkins University Medical Center. Basically, Bethlehem Steel is gone. Obviously, the whole level has really risen. What do you say? What is is there an education answer? My gut tells me it is, because if you look at the unemployment statistics, high school dropouts about 13% unemployed, finished high school 11% unemployed, 2 years of college 7% unemployed, 4 years of college 4.2% unemployed. So obviously something's going on there in ways we can't even probably fully figure out. That if you got those 4 years, you may not be working in exactly the job you want yet, but it's going to insulate you from these forces. But what have you learned, Bill, about education that would ease my mind and that anxiety out there of a lot of people that this has gotten so fast and the standards are rising so quickly of what I need for any job? Is there going to be employment there for enough people?
Well, there is not a fixed number of jobs, and a lot of this discussion about, jobs is really economically illiterate. When we invented tractors, people said, "My God, we're all farmers. What the heck are we going to do?" Well, until your entertainment experience is perfect, until your classroom size is down to 5 kids, until healthcare is really making sure every patient is super well taken care of. Until you get to that, there's demand for labor. It's just that you have these mismatch between what labor you want and how you've trained the workforce. As an individual, yes, you're going to be better off if you're better educated.
Because that average job will require more skill. Even to be a machine operator now, you need to know some algebra, some calculus. I mean, to do advanced, manufacturing.
There will always be low-skilled jobs, but the wage differential is getting steeper and steeper. I mean, even to be the really grow things like being a nurse, you have to have a 2-year certificate, know a little bit of algebra. And so we owe it to every American to make it pretty darn easy for them to get through that system. And so we are failing to really look at why people aren't getting through, why we have the highest dropout rate. We're about middle of the pack in terms of people who start going for a degree.